The goal is to make it so abundantly worth it for you that, yeah, you've invested time, money, energy, but you go, yeah, no, that paid off. I saw how it converted into something meaningful.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get to B School. This is your host, Drex, and I'm happy that you're here. It's feeling a little bit like fall over here now. My wife, Sarah, she brought home the most delicious snack yesterday from Trader Joe's. It was maple popcorn. You know, if you know me at all, I love that kind of a snack. That was delicious. So run to Trader Joe's. That's my free plug for you. You're welcome. Hope you're doing well. I know that a lot of you are working on apps right now. Hope a lot of you are pushing submit on the Kellogg application that's due this week. It'd be fun to see so many of you out here next fall, regardless of what you're working on, regardless of where you're at. Hope you're doing well. I hope you enjoy this discussion. We're going back to a coaching interview this week with Ben Lazaroff. He's a Stanford guy. His story is fascinating. He shares a ton about his work experience, what led him to coaching, and how he is such a helpful coach right now. The whole thing ends up being a gigantic plug for Leland. I mean, that's totally fine with me. I love the platform. I think they're doing a great thing over there. Go to Leland. I'll put his link in the profile notes so that you can go and book him if you're trying to find a coach. He has a lot to offer. Thought it was a fantastic episode and really appreciate him coming on. If you know of anyone who should be a guest on this show, or if you should be a guest on this show, please reach out. I know I say that most weeks. I mean it though. Thank you to everyone who has made connections, who has reached out. It adds a lot to the show when we're not just pulling from one person's network. So thank you to everyone who has done that. Please keep doing all the algorithm-y things like subscribing, liking, sharing, posting, anything you can do to feed the algorithm. It just boosts it for other people and gets it in front of more ears. So thank you to everyone who's already done that. Appreciate it. I know it's maybe tacky of me to ask, but I gotta ask. And now let's get to the good part with Ben. Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Of course, happy to be here and honestly just excited to see this grow and evolve to in and of itself.
Yeah, that's so nice of you. By having voices like your own, coaches, people who have done this thing over and over again, I think it will help grow. And I think that's what people are looking for right now. So before we dig into any questions, would you mind giving a bit of a background into your own self?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in right on the border of Queens and Long Island in New York. I think it's like a smaller town. My dad always jokes that it's like Indiana 1950. So it's kind of a sleepy small town, but I also feel like it gave me an upbringing where I relate to a lot of people. I went to WashU for undergrad, which was a 180 for me. It was super intellectually curious. The people were amazing. I did like philosophy, neuroscience, econ there. So kind of just a way to not know what you want to do for as long as humanly possible. The corporate overlords descended upon campus. I ended up at McKinsey. I will say that like I joined for that combination of, I would say, superficial reasons. And also like I genuinely was just an intellectually curious person and just like wanted to figure out what this was all about. So eyes wide open, super naive. Spent a couple of years there, loved it, had a pretty anomalous path, did a lot of prison work and actually helping people who were incarcerated get full-time jobs. Also got to do some really cool stuff with Generation, which is the McKinsey social initiative. So I was just a young fledgling, 23, 24-year-old. And they took me on as a fellow for the summer to do like business development in the US and stuff. Really cool, amazing leadership. And like, I would just say again, like, I think it's really easy to like dunk on like consulting, MBB especially. I had an awesome couple years there, understanding that there's always a mixed bag with that type of stuff, right? But I really wanted to do policy work full time. And this opportunity came up very randomly and at an amazing opportune time. So I left full time and joined the mayor's office in Chicago. I'd probably still be there if it were up to me, but the mayor decided he wasn't going to run for re-election. I got to work on awesome stuff from like corporate devs, so like the Amazon HQ2 deal, all the way down to infrastructure stuff for things like 5G, and learned a lot about how stuff actually works, while also I think being perpetually humbled by the fact that, yeah, this is my like year or 2 years worth of knowledge and people have been doing this for 25, the amount that they must know, it was consistently dawning on me. I went to B school kind of on a whim. Part of why I even do Leland is I think I ran that process about as inefficiently and stress-filled as you possibly could in like a 2-month period. I crammed the GMAT. I was running around. I was so like nervous about recommendations and what that was going to be. Wrote some of the worst things I've ever written when it comes to like just a collection of words on paper in a Word document for my first drafts, my essays. So I remember what it's like to run a terrible process, because that was my process. Obviously, I ended up in a place where I was super happy. GSB was awesome. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I'm sure you're going to have questions on it, but it was an amazing experience for me. It was also just like I would say I kind of ran into the wealth wall to some degree as well, where I felt like I showed up on campus with a couple $1,000s. And I don't know, these ski trips that some people are taking are like, they'd bankrupt me if I went every other week. I kind of ran into that dynamic. And I think I bring that up because that's actually like my first impression of the place, which is tough because it's beautiful. You go there, it's palm trees, amazing. But I just remember I couldn't afford anything. That
Right.
kind of spurred a lot of how I used my time. And I constantly was I was working on different startup ideas as well, but I was building a contracting business in the background that was like literally paying the cost of living and the bills. And Stanford was super generous and I think paid 50 something percent through financial aid and fellowship. So I would say they very fairly, and I so appreciate them doing that part. But I got to work with some crazy investors there who were literally like jetting me up and down the coast doing projects. We were working on a film studio. We were working on graphene face masks during COVID, tons of different cool stuff. Post GSB, it kind of just continued and flowed like that. I did some chief of staff style work as like consultant to the CEO for a couple different startups. One did like 3D renderings. Another did machine learning cancer diagnostics. So I started to see that it was really a transferable set of skills, some of the stuff that I was learning. And I felt like what actually matters, how do I get the shit done that needs to get done immediately and just focus exclusively on that. So I spent a little time as well with Bain doing basically contract style work, jumping into teams, making them function a little bit more efficiently. And then I also did some project work for New York City. It's just been a cool smattering of stuff. I played around with a chess startup as well. And I think Leland is the latest iteration, but I land on Leland because it's kind of the first thing for me in a little bit where I've been enjoying it so much. I've been building skills and I think bringing hopefully a little bit different kind of energy to the space. And then also it's just working and it's an awesome platform filled with really, really good people who, having met the vast majority of them, if not all of them, I feel like I can vouch for them on like an individual level and then also feel their collective culture that they're building is a good one. And it makes me feel optimistic for the education space in general to see what they're doing for it. Being a coach on their platform is awesome. And I feel like being there since the early days too, like whenever they make all these amazing platform updates, they've done more updates in the past 3 months to the platform than I think most companies do in a year or two. So it's been cool to watch them grow and just be part of that.
I have no idea which thread to pull. That was crazy. At first, I was like, okay, I'm going to ask him a little bit more about the incarceration work because you never hear about, that altruistic side of McKinsey. But then, no, it's like, okay, do we talk about the mayor thing? Do we talk about Stanford? No, like I will say this, loved your take on the wealth wall at Stanford. I think that's not unique to Stanford. Everyone experiences that, but no one really talks about it. And everyone's wondering like, okay, if you didn't come from money, do you just take out more loans to travel? Do you just like, what is the travel worth more loans, And anyway, we don't need to dive into that, but what is helpful is to hear you say it and hear that is part of your consideration throughout your experience.
Yeah.
What I will ask, you obviously have a crazy breadth of experience. Why spend any time helping kids get to business school?
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, I've asked myself the very like stripped down, like, what are we doing here? Right. I do that with basically everything that I take on. It all starts with running a terrible process and being like, what are all of the things I wish I knew? And I would say that this mindset links actually a lot to the incarceration stuff, to the stuff I tried to do in workforce throughout my career. It's this labor marketplace. How do we get people who have a goal in mind, whatever the heck that is, and give them the tools, resources, specific skills that they now need to know they need to work on, and the steps they have to take to go from A to Z. MBA schools, I say, there's all sorts of things that we have to think about when we go through MBA apps, and like there's tactical considerations, there's emotional considerations. You're going to be going through like a lot of reflection, all this stuff. I feel as though with the reps that I've gained and having seen people successfully move through the cycle, go to these programs, graduate, do their own thing. Saw some person that the first person I worked with at Leland was deferred. She's already like an investor at Berkshire Hathaway. I'm like, where did this from? Like, it's amazing to see the paths that people go down. Like they really are. Some people are really just incredibly interesting and crushing it. It's equally enjoyable to, I think, take somebody who has a ton of potential and you can see it and get them there and then watch them blow your expectations out of the water. It's equally enjoyable to do that as it is for me to work with somebody who's been incarcerated and never made a resume before. Doesn't even know what that means. And I see everything in between from those two cases to someone, for example, who I'm working on that resume with them right now. They have a deep engineering STEM background. I'm trying to pull them out of the everything has to be about which coding language you use in order to articulate the value of your experience and push them more towards like, hey, what actually happened here? And English is their third language. So there are complicated cases like that too. And I think it stretches your brain, and for be very selfish about it, I feel like I learn a lot. And so I'm curious about like integrating and building this like continued log of all these people and their stories in my head. And it's so interesting. And I feel like I'm constantly drawing parallels between people. And I'll stop there, but there's a lot of cool stuff that you can get from this that's not really on the surface.
I really love that. The funny thing is you talk about running a terrible application process personally, and then you get into Stanford, which I know people give you crap for that, I'm sure. So
Sure.
I won't give you more. What are those things that you feel like you did do wrong that you're helping people correct now?
Great question. And I don't want to deny that like I had absolutely nothing going for me. Like I also think I benefit from simple things that like, hey, I don't get super stressed out about tests and probably over prepare and drive myself crazy on the front end, right? But there are things that I feel like I was more inclined to just be able to do that gave me a natural advantage. And I don't want to like sugarcoat any of that either and act like everything was just stumbled my way into a business school. Like it was all magic, right? Like it's not that either. Some of the things though that I work with people on, some of the changes are so small, but have huge ripple effects. For example, how you waste time in an essay with all the caveats and hedges and the 16 little mini phrases that end up cumulatively taking up 125 words of your 400 word essay. How do we get you to say the same idea in 1/8 of the words? Like I try to push people to become concise, clear communicators on paper, and then ideally lift that off paper and translate that into an interview setting as well down the line. I find a lot of people, especially early on, not only do they struggle on what do I even write in this essay, but they are landing in spaces where their tone is off. What a tone is off means to me is when I talk to you, you're passionate, you're interesting, you're energetic, you have clear things to say about what you know and what you want to do. And then on paper, it's, I hope all is well. I want to collaborate with a diverse set of stakeholders in order to achieve a goal. And it's like getting you to sound like you normally on paper, I think is a huge thing that I work on with people. Frankly, also the thing that I struggle with a lot that I help people correct is stop writing what you think they want to hear. Write what they are asking you to write. That's it. That's it. So those are some things that really help people, I think, lock in on. But, I think one last thing I just add, this is a process laden with insecurity. And I would say for me, I felt it most strongly with the letter of recommendation process. Who the hell am I at 24, 25 years old, be asking these certified professional, my recommenders with like on Obama's legal counsel. I shouldn't even be like in the room next to the room that this person is speaking in, right? How do I approach that person and not feel like a fool? Knowing how those conversations went and how quick they were, like, absolutely, would love to. Just let me know what you need. Was basically the gist of the conversation. Same exact thing with this person I worked with at McKinsey, who oversaw a lot of that prison-related work, who wrote one of my letters for a school that I think asked for 3 or something like that. And I was so nervous. I was walking down Randolph. I was walking down the block from the mayor's office directly to McKinsey, which is funny. It's literally actually connected, which is hilarious. But I was walking to the office and I don't remember being as nervous for any of my interviews, for any of the portal is updating moments as I was walking down the block trying to just get myself to ask this person and not turn around. And the conversation was over in literally 30 seconds. She interrupted me in the middle of like my little like opening with her. And she was like, I'd love to write a letter with you. Don't ask twice. So I was like, okay, yeah.
That's so great.
How do we get people that we're working with? How do we get people we're working with to not spend 2/3 of their mental energy worrying about stuff that will resolve itself, or with a little bit of care and a little bit of forethought will ultimately have a great outcome?
Okay, then let's pivot then to brass tacks. Someone's listening to you right now. They're like, Ben's great. I want to work with Ben. It sounds like you're an incredible asset when it comes time to put words on paper. But more than that, you mentioned the interview prep or letters of recommendation.
Yeah.
What is your favorite phase to coach someone?
Ooh, I'm in it right now with a lot of people. My favorite phase to coach people is when they are mid-iteration. They're post-test. That's just adds a lot of stress. They're post-test. We've gotten those first drafts out of the way. Like we're in the process of like, hey, that first draft or shoot kind of sucked, right? It was really bad for like reasons A, B, C, and we both agree on that.
Right.
How do we take a 3 essay and make it a 9?
Right.
How do we take something that for sure will get you 0 interviews and turn it into something that's going to get you 2 or 3? I really enjoy helping people crystallize their vision. And when it gets to a high enough definition, then it gets exciting because we can both see it and we're like, hey, that actually feels right. That actually is what I want to apply to business school.
Awesome. I mean, another kind of brass tacks question. What's the timeline for you to take someone from 3 to a 9?
Yeah, it is so much an input output kind of thing. I'm working with 10 people at the same time. I can't get everything back, within 30 minutes here. I need a little bit of bandwidth to like add things to the queue and make sure I'm like getting every single review deep thought. What I will say is I love when somebody's just right on top of it and they're just going to rip a draft back to me in 48 hours. I'm more likely to then re-rip it back to them and just keep that momentum going. The delete key is the most valuable key on the keyboard. And to understand that is such an important part of writing. So getting them to see that early on when I'm just like, hey, this paragraph doesn't add any value. You actually said the exact same thing you said in paragraph 1, just with new words. Adds nothing, delete it. And now you have 80 words of space. Reframing that for people also helps. I'll pause there. Remind me your original question. I think I answered it somewhere.
How long does it take to get someone from 3 to 9?
Yeah, how long? So it's input output. But if somebody's getting drafts quickly, the fastest I've ever done was like 48 hours, where we did 4 drafts in 48 hours for somebody. And this is not normal. The HBS deadline was like right up to it. And they reached out and they're like, hey, I know this is crazy. Let me know if you have a couple hours. And we just banged it out and they got in. And I was like, this is the most ridiculous, like this shouldn't be allowed, right? Like they shouldn't have been able to iterate this well over time, but it was awesome to see. So that's the fastest normal good timeline, 2 to 3 months.
That is incredible. That is the definition of an application savior right there, man.
I like doing that. It's fun.
Okay, we've talked about some mistakes or some things to look out for. What are some things that you're seeing applicants do that are really good and really strong?
In what capacity? In terms of their materials, in terms of how they approach stuff?
Ooh, good follow-up. Let's talk first about their approach.
I think their approach is actually super, super important. One thing I like when people who I'm working with will schedule something like a 30-minute, let's check in. I've got 6 or 7 things I want to make sure I cover. These are like my blockers. I call them like unblocking meetings sometimes with people, where we just come in and they bring your 25 questions, 7 of them on letters of rank, 8 of them on the schools that you're applying to and some unique pieces to them, 5 of them on your essays, whatever. So I like blocking questions and chunking them together and helping people, again, just like if there's a path, let's move the stuff out of the way. I like those path finding or unblocking meetings. I think people who are proactive are doing that. And proactivity really is like a key theme. It's actually something I'm looking for before I even decide someone's a good fit to work with. Procrastination is like the death of MBA applications and like is a great way to minimize your chances of getting in. But if you are somebody who sets clear objectives and sticks to them, that's key. I think people approach-wise, the other thing I would just say is this is a part-time job. So if you are not ready to take on a part-time job, probably shouldn't be taking it on. So realize that it's worth carving out those concerted periods of time. There's probably a good time in there to take a week or 2 of PTO if you have it or something like that, or really carve out a little bit of focus. I think honestly, like, is it worth it? Not everybody can take a week of PTO on the drop of a hat. I totally get that. That person might have to grind on the weekends. But at the same time, man, you're structuring the next 2+ years of your life. Week's probably worth it. Set themselves up early for success, put a schedule, proactive agenda, unblocking meetings. All that stuff's great. Tactically, I think they reach out to their letters of recommendation. They get their letters of recommendation up and started early. They're doing the right things in the right order. If you are someone who thinks this is just a big volume of work and that order of operations don't matter, you're going to have a reawakening in the MBA process. Because if it just so happens that you punted on asking your recommenders and it turns out one of them's out of the country or doesn't respond to you or isn't a good fit or doesn't want to, right? All of those things might happen and your perfect plan, the foundation starts to shake a little bit. So I get people out in front on that piece and brainstorming early on the essays. My one sentence there is just like some recipes say, let's sit for 45 minutes, let marinate, right? Sometimes ideas take a bit to flesh out. So can't just like pound it out in like a week usually.
Okay, I love that. A theme that I'm picking up here is just how helpful it is to have someone like you, and especially you, change perspectives, change outlooks, change paradigms. You just need someone else to pull you out, to think of it in a different way, to push the delete key with you. That's awesome. Very, very helpful. We only have a few minutes left. Anything that I should have asked, anything you're leaving with listeners who are in the throes of applications or about to start thinking about it?
Yeah. First off, Leland is doing now these like really awesome mini podcasts with people as well, with coaches and people that they've coached. So one thing I will always say to people is like, am I or anybody on Leland or any platform, are they a good coach? That's not my decision to make. That's the people who you've worked with's decision to make. So if they think you're great, then you're great. If they think you're terrible, you're terrible. So that's one thing that I think we're doing is trying to get people's perspective out there. And I think normalize the coaching process a little bit. I think what happened to the space I know I'm getting a little bit off, far afield from your question, but I think the space had a lot of legacy in it, embedded in it. There was a lot of old school ways of doing things in terms of what coaching meant. Was coaching just paid access? So there are a lot of these challenging notions that I think were real, and I think had a little bit of old boys club vibe to them. I think now it's about actually running a great process and building an awesome application. Shifting that and hearing from people who've gone through that coaching process and can speak materially to the stuff you actually did with them. And then more people can work with you and be like, yeah, that stuff that like Alex or Steve or Bob said about so-and-so, we did that too. That's actually what happened. It's no longer this like process that lives in some shadowy realm in the ivory tower. It's like maybe coaching can just be a super positive thing like it is in sports, like it is in pretty much every single field in terms of development. Like, why would we not have this for like the architecture of our lives and like a really important, step or pivot that we have in our life? That's how I've been thinking about it.
I agree full-heartedly. I'm so much on the team of get a coach. I realize it's expensive, but I just think it's wildly advantageous.
The goal is to make it so abundantly worth it for you that, yeah, you've invested time, money, energy, but you go, yeah, no, that paid off. I saw how it converted into something meaningful. Not to mention that there's also plenty of coaches on there. I do a bunch of discounts for like first responders, things like that, or veterans. And I think that people should do that more. There are people at all budget levels on a company like Leland. You can work with people who are like a half or a third of something like, the top coaches charged on the platform. So there are really a lot of options. And I think building the marketplace out will do that more and more as Leland just grows.
Absolutely love it. Ben, last thing for people that do want to work with you, Leland, the only place, or where else can people find you?
I'm sticking to Leland for now. I think they're running a great shop and the platform gets better and better to use every day. So can't say enough good things. Also, it's where I started.
I love that. Hey, I really actually love that. Okay, Ben, thanks for coming on, man. That was, listeners, try to hang on for that one. That was amazing.
Cool. All right, are we done now, Drexler? Or can we cut there?
Cut. Yep.
Cool.
I'll let you go.
Dude, you know what I'm trying to do today? I'm trying to get outside, go for a walk.
Do it.
It's been a burner. It's been a burner this week. Trying to relax.